Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. It's just after 4 p.m. on the East Coast. This is Rob Sin at CEO Technician on X, at Goldfinger on co.ca. And this is Goldfinger Capital. And I want to make a rather concise, if I can possibly do anything concise, video talking about junior explorers. I know we've done a lot of macro the last few weeks. It's been a macro mayhem, a time of macro mayhem. The macro obviously matters a lot. The macro, especially the gold price, is driving a lot of what's happening in the junior mining sector. But I think we can kind of maybe, hopefully, for the next couple of weeks at least, focus more on individual companies and drilling and exploration and actual news flow at the corporate level instead of tweets, headlines, sound bites from Washington, D.C., and all that stuff. TSX-Venture, starting out with this chart, I don't want to jinx it. I'm not going to show the bigger picture patterns in play here, but just another V bottom. Remember, we had this one in February, early March. You know what drove that. I'm not going to say the word or words. And then here's another one. Obviously, this one was more of a panic, more extreme, from 648 to 546 on the TSX-V. But now we're back to 630, right? So we're V bottoming. You can see the resistance level at 650. That's a big level. Again, I'm not going to zoom out and show how important this is, but man, that's a big level. And if we do get a breakout above that level in the next few weeks, oh boy, could be a big deal. Anyway, just to put it into perspective, we've had some relief here in the last few trading sessions. The macro mayhem has abated for the time being. And I think it's companies in the junior mining sector are putting out news releases. Again, we got news flow across the sector. I'm just going to go through some of the more notable ones and tell you about some of the drill programs I'm excited about. So Talon Metals, TLO on the TSX, nickel, copper, high grade, junior in Minnesota and Michigan. Obviously, the Tamarack project is high grade nickel, copper, cobalt sulfide project in a rural county in Minnesota, right? So low population density, lower income area of the state of Minnesota. Checks a lot of boxes. I mean, this project, Tamarack, is one of the only games in town for nickel in the United States. Obviously, there are more nickel projects out there, but this is one of the highest grade, if not the highest grade. And you get nickel, copper, and cobalt. So you get these three critical metals in one deposit. There's even some platinum and palladium in there somewhere too, and maybe even some sniffs of gold lying around. But it's a nickel primary project, and it's high grade. And they've worked pretty hard at Tamarack in these last 5 years, and they've drilled out a pretty good sized ore body. I mean, it's not a porphyry, right? It's a different setting. It's a different kind of geological model. It's conduit hosted sulfides. But we're talking about 20 million ton deposit here above 2%, nickel equivalent grades. So it's high grade, and it's got enough scale to matter, at least matter somewhat. I'm not sure it matters much to Rio Tinto, which is Talon's JV partner at Tamarack. Talon has 60% and Rio Tinto has 40%. But it matters to someone. It might matter to a company called Lundin Mining. But anyway, in the last month, Talon has put out some news of new discoveries, right? So they're actually, this has a resource on it, but they continue to explore. They continue to make new discoveries. They continue to find new zones and pockets of massive and semi-massive sulfides. So that's interesting. And clearly, their technology, their geophysical technology, they have it's EM, but it's more complicated than that, and they've really perfected the science of how to use the geophysics to hone in on these massive sulfide bodies, right? It's working, right? So they've really got this down to a science, and it's working really well. So that was March 26th, where they hit 8.25 meters of massive sulfides, 95% sulfides, and that was under this 138 zone. So you see purple, this is 138 zone. Here's this hit that they had at depth, about 700 meters deep, and it's 95% sulfides. We're still waiting for the assays, but just based upon what we know about this deposit, um, probably going to be grades of 8, 9, 10% nickel with some copper and platinum group metals in there as well, right? You can see this is what their hole they're using for reference. This logged 90% sulfides, and that's what the grades were. And this one is 95% sulfides, right? So that was in March. And then this morning at CGO East, so this is under the CGO East zone, not as deep. It's not 700 meters. This one's about 350 meters. They drilled 16.09 meters, logged between 10% to 80% sulfides. So semi-massive to massive sulfides over 16 meters. And again, they're finding extensions, they're finding new zones, and they called this one, it may represent a waterfall draining the CGO East zone, similar to the waterfall in the CGO West zone. And they have a lot of cool diagrams and showing this is their interpretation. This is CGO East, and this is this waterfall. And they drilled, this is the where they drilled into this waterfall, steeply plunging, draining massive sulfides. Interesting. I'm not going to go into it in more detail than that, but the fact that they still keep hitting, they keep exploring, they keep finding more mineralization, it bodes well. I mean, I think there's a lot of, and it's interesting. They have this thing about they extended their period of exclusivity with Lundin Mining on and Earnin on their Michigan Boulder Dash and Roland targets in Michigan till April 30th. And it just seems to me there's a natural fit here between Talon and Lundin Mining. I mean, it's not rocket science. Talon is an exploration company that's really good at exploring and finding new deposits and expanding known zones. As I said, they're really good with the geophysics. They have their own technology, their own modeling, 3D modeling. They're very good explorers. Lundin is not really much of an explorer in the US. They have a mine in Michigan, the only nickel mine in operation in the US, the Eagle mine. But it's at Eagle, they're running out of ore in the next 5 years. I think they'll be out of ore by 2030. So there's a natural tie-in. With Lundin, you have a mining company that knows how to permit and knows how to operate a mine. And with Talon, you have an explorer that knows how to explore and find more tonnage and find the higher grade, right? So there seems to be, there's a natural fit here between these two. So we'll see how this plays out. Talon's an interesting company. Obviously, the share structure is not a great selling point, and everybody and their brother in the market knows that they need to finance soon. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. 10.5 cents. You can see that Talon went through very similar volatility to every other junior over the last few weeks, from 8 cents to 12 cents, back to 8 cents, and now to 10.5 cents. This is an interesting time in the junior mining sector because there's a lot of drill programs that are just starting or will start soon. And there's a lot of cool targets out there that are going to be tested in 2025. And I like new discoveries. I like companies that are willing to take risk and drill really compelling targets, right? And so Aztec, AZT on the TSX-V, is focused in southern Arizona at the Tombstone project. And Aztec has the CRD targets that I've been following since 2021. It was always kind of on the back burner because they're considered to be a little higher risk, higher cost. The last few years, the main focus for Aztec at Tombstone has been to continue to expand the near surface gold and silver zones, which they've done a great job of. They have a really high hit rate at Tombstone. And even earlier this year, you can see some of the results that they announced, some really high grades, including 7 kilo silver equivalent at the southern extension of the contention zone at Tombstone. But just overall, very high hit rate, pretty good grades, near surface oxide gold and silver. But now it's time to swing a bigger bat and test these CRD targets. I'm just going to very briefly explain a little bit about these deeper CRD targets. March 20th, they put out news. March 25th, they put out more news on the CRD target. So clearly the company is pivoting and telling you, we are going to be drilling these CRD targets, right? We know we've got big zone of near surface oxide gold and silver at the contention and west side areas, but now we need to test the deeper interpretation that there could be CRD deposit at depth. And so the first thing is the AMT. They did this survey a few years ago. Big anomalies lit up. So what is an AMT anomaly? Well, basically it's telling you low resistivity, so high conductivity. So there's a conductive body or bodies sitting down here at depth under the Tombstone project. And then we have this historical hole that was drilled by Santa Fe. I don't know, I think it was like 30 years ago. And they drilled a 700-meter hole and they tagged into CRD mineralization at depth. So 7.16 meters of about 30 grams silver, 6.5% lead, 2.6% zinc, and 0.61% copper. Add it all up, that's about a 10% zinc equivalent grade on that intercept, 7-meter intercept. So that's CRD. Like if you had that interval over 50 meters, you'd have a discovery, right? You'd have something that would get people really excited, right? Especially considering this is southern Arizona and we know about South 32's Taylor Hermosa project, right? The Taylor deposit was transacted for almost 2 billion Canadian dollars in 2018. It was acquired by South 32, and that's a CRD deposit in southern Arizona. So we have our comp. We know that these CRDs can form in the limestone host rocks, carbonate rocks, and we know that underneath Tombstone we have the Nacho limestones, right? So favorable stratigraphy, conductive body lighting up at depth with the geophysics, and they go through the rationale, including the historic hole by Santa Fe that tagged into high-grade CRD mantos 700 meters deep, right? And it's just the conductive body. It needs to be investigated, and the fact that there's 2 of them, there's one further south, I think it needs to be tested, right? So the first, I think, idea here is to re-enter these pre-collars 13 and 16 and drill down to about 800 meters, right, to test this concept, right? That's the first order of business. I think they can drill those 2 holes because they've been pre-collared for $1 million US, or maybe a little less than $1 million US, and then go from there, right? They'll get a lot more information from those 2 holes. Then they could add a 3rd hole if they want to, but probably Aztec's going to have to do a 2.5 million Canadian financing here to fund this deeper CRD drilling. That'll probably, I assume, probably happen in June. Could be May. I'm not sure. But I think this will be a very exciting drill program because these CRD targets are pretty compelling. Southern Arizona, CRD gets the juices flowing because we know there have been more discoveries like this made in this area, and there's probably more lurking out there to be made. You can see Aztec stock, it dropped along with the sector, along with the market during the macro turmoil, down to, what was that, 15 cents? Geez. And now we're V-bottoming back to 20 cents, and that's probably where it should be trading, between 20 and 25 cents. And I really think that once they get the funding squared away and they announce when they're going to be drilling those CRD targets, this one could definitely move up on anticipation. We're seeing, so this is across the sector. The last few weeks gave up a lot of opportunities to buy the really highest quality stocks like Collective Mining, CNL, on corrections, right? So CNL traded up to 1067, corrected to 756 during the turmoil of early April, and now V-bottoming. We're right back. Actually, it made a new high. It made a new high today. So this is a new all-time high close for Collective Mining. And I pulled this up because this is an example of the best the junior mining sector has to offer. A company that is operating at a very high level, a lot of momentum in the drill results, a lot of momentum in the geology, and a lot of momentum at the corporate level, with Agnico taking a big stake in this company. So they have strong financial backers, some of the largest mining companies in the world, and the drill results just keep blowing it out of the water. I mean, they are knocking the cover off the ball at Guayabales. And you see the strongest companies recover the fastest, right? So it corrected literally to the 40-day moving average, and now we're closing at a new all-time high. And I know there's been a lot of complaining among junior mining investors that why aren't my gold stocks going up with the gold price? Well, I think it's starting to happen, guys. Aurion Resources. So it literally has the perfect symbol for a gold bull market. AU is the symbol on the TSX-Venture. Well, what is this? This is, I think, a new 52-week high close here. It just made at 83 cents. And yeah, it had a little dump along with everything else during the early April turmoil. But look at how it's recovered. It's not only V-bottomed, it's recovered to make new highs. So I think, knock on wood, we're starting to see the gold juniors perform. It's just starting. This is literally the, inception of the junior gold bull market. Dare I say it? And there's a lot of other things going on here for this company at the corporate level, behind the scenes. I'm not going to get into all of that. I think I've commented on it before, but Finland is definitely a great place to be for exploration, and particularly for gold exploration. Hercules Metals, not going to get into anything more than just to say I think drilling is about to start here this month, maybe even this week. I don't know. But it's starting to move up. This had a very big drop, maybe bigger than it should have had, quite frankly, during the early April turmoil. But as we're getting closer to drilling, this one is trading a lot better. And that's really to emphasize, like, drilling is what this game is all about at the exploration level, at the exploration stage of the mining life cycle, that first part of the Lassonde curve. Drilling is what creates value. It's also what can destroy value if the drilling doesn't go well, right? So the knife cuts both ways, but if we don't drill, then what are we even doing? Right? So I like companies that are drilling, big drill programs, aggressive with their drilling, and Hercules Metals is definitely one of those. And there's going to be a lot of drilling here in 2025 in Idaho. And then on my Substack, I'm just going to summarize this. So check it out. This is a free article up there for anybody that wants to see it. Intrepid Metals, Southern Arizona. This is Aztec's neighbor, actually, in Cochise County. And they've been basically ring staked. Ivanhoe Electric staked over here. Rio Tinto staked over here. I like Rio Tinto's side better just based upon these maps that Intrepid put out. Look at the target stars. They're mostly on the east and mostly on, they're on the northeast near Ringo and Earp. This area right here, the Z-TEM anomalies over by Ringo, have my interest for sure. You can see this structure, this fault structure, a very important structure runs along here. I like these two targets over here. I think they call these target 3 just to the east of Ringo. I think those are going to be drilled starting in May. So there is a phase 2 drill program starting here at the Corral Copper property in May. Intrepid just raised money, so they're ready to go. That's definitely a stock to watch as they explore and investigate for maybe a porphyry center there somewhere at Corral. They got the supergene blanket at surface. They got CRD. Let's find the porphyry, right? And the fact that Rio Tinto and Ivanhoe are right there paying attention, that's definitely one to watch. Eloro Resources in Bolivia, tin and silver explorer. This is a big deposit, guys. I mean, just look at the map, look at the scale bar down here. This is a very big deposit. And frankly, you just don't get tin grades like this very often, right? 0.55% tin, 0.79% tin. And this tin domain is really taking shape here with grades increasing at depth and interpreted to continue to depth. Obviously, it's going to require some deeper holes to fully investigate this potential tin porphyry. But this is a big deposit, big ore body, and they just hired a vice president of mining. So how many exploration companies have a VP of mining? So Eloro, and I didn't mean this in a condescending way at all, but Eloro is advancing from an explorer to a more serious mining company, quite frankly. And the company will deliver a maiden PEA up here later this year. And then First Atlantic Nickel, so Awaruite, it's magnetically recoverable nickel, right? So there's laterite, there's sulfide, and then there's Awaruite nickel, right? Just say Mother Earth's stainless steel. That's really what it is, because it's nickel that can be recovered through magnetic separation techniques. It doesn't require smelting. It doesn't require massive heat and energetic processes to separate the nickel. It can be separated magnetically. It's very simple. It's not that complicated, right? So Awaruite nickel. I love saying that word because it's tricky to say, requires a little tongue twisting. First Atlantic has done a great job with the DTR, the explaining the process, including this video. I highly recommend you watch it. But basically, the big takeaways for me, the hole they reported today was terminated prematurely in a fault zone. So they ended the hole at like 200 meters down the hole. But what's interesting, when they assayed it, the bottom 21 meters of the hole had the highest magnetically recoverable nickel grades. DTR averaged 0.15% in the final 21 meters. What we're really shooting for is like 0.13% DTR grades. That's good. 0.14% is great. 0.15% is excellent. Anything above 0.15 is extraordinary, quite frankly. So the fact that we got these 0.15% DTR in the final 21 meters of hole 2403 in this fault zone, this heavily faulted rock, that was a very important finding, right? And the theory is that increased water permeability in the fault zone may have enhanced the serpentinization process, leading to more Awaruite formation, higher concentration of magnetically recoverable nickel, Mother Nature's stainless steel, right? So this fault zone is very interesting because it's a really big structure. It's a very big structure. It's 100 meters wide, and it runs along the entire extent of the property. So there's a lot of room to investigate this potentially higher grade structure, right? And if it's true that the grades are higher here in this fault zone, then obviously there's a lot of room to grow the tonnage as they test the full strike extent. But right now in phase 2, which phase 2 drilling will start very soon, I think it's going to start in the next couple of weeks. Who knows? Maybe even sooner. They're basically ready to go with a new, more powerful drill. They're going to stay in this area for phase 2. There's plenty of room. You're talking about, this entire zone is probably like 3,000 to 4,000 meters by 2,000 to 3,000 meters across. Plenty of room to step out and investigate this area and sort of prove up potential tonnage and find the areas that have the higher concentrations of magnetically recoverable nickel. And we've got other metals here, right? Chromium, right? So chromium is also potentially going to be an economic value driver in any future mining operation here at the Atlantic Nickel Project in Newfoundland. So I thought it was a good news release. Company is fully funded. They just did a financing, a flow-through financing. So they're really good to go here for phase 2. And phase 2 is going to be 4,000 to 5,000 meters of core drilling, and obviously the metallurgical testing, which is absolutely key for any nickel project. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in. If you found value in this video, if you enjoy my content, please hit like and subscribe.